Hey everyone, welcome to the Doc May Diet Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Brian May. Every episode, I strive to break down and talk about the most relevant health topics and give you the basics so you have what you need to know and understand in order to live a healthy and happy life. So if you're listening, thank you. And thank you for trusting me to guide you along your journey of personal health and wellness. Also, if you're listening, feel free to share my message. Go ahead and like and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And also follow me on social media on Instagram and Facebook at Doc May Diet. Without further ado, let's get to today's episode. All right, welcome back. Doc May Diet Podcast, episode 24. My guest today is Joshua J. Diesel. Josh is a certified personal trainer through National Academy of Sports Medicine, also a lifestyle transformation specialist. Josh has helped transform hundreds of people's lifestyles, help them get into the best shape of their life, including actually a mutual friend of ours, which is actually how I got to know Josh. But you can check him out at joshuajdiesel.com. He's got a bunch of good workout programs, meal planning, nutrition tips, 24/7 support, and pretty much everything in between. So, Josh, I see you on Instagram, man. You're constantly, consistently producing good content, like 10 times a day. You're the hardest working guy I see on there. And it looks like you're working out like 3 times a day, man. Is that true?
It's interesting, man. I just, I live by a mindset of stay active. So, some days I will get multiple workouts. Typically, if they're actual structured workouts, I'm going to go into 2 actual, structured workouts for the day. That's typically a mindset that I'll have going into something. But I think a lot of, what I show on there, and even what I tell a lot of my clients, and I think that's really the thing that is, transformation of lifestyle, that it doesn't necessarily have to be, hey, let me go, get a workout. It's just living an active lifestyle. So a lot of times we'll see, that I post on there, maybe I got my workout for the day, but I've got some time to kill in the middle of the day. Let me go for a little bit of a run, especially, like we just talked about down here, the weather is so nice. So, any given day, I'm sorry.
Where are you at right now so the people know?
So I'm down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You get a consistent 80-degree weather, sunshine, and pretty much every day. So you probably see some of those pool workouts I make every now and then, because that's always nice. But anything really to get moving, and that's really the ideology that I preach and that I give to everybody. You can make anything a workout. People call me crazy because I'll be doing the most simple task, but I'm going to make it like a workout. How can I get a little bit more out of this? And ultimately, that's really the ideology behind that. As I look through my day, and I work with a lot of business owners, people who are busy, throughout their day. So it's very important for them to utilize any type of downtime they have, maybe even at work in the office. And those are the things really that transform the lifestyle, as opposed to just taking, a fitness sort of, journey for, a couple of months. It really creates a lifestyle where you carry it throughout the rest of your life,
That makes sense. So I guess for me to contextualize that'd be, as opposed to just like giving somebody a structured workout, like, all right, here's like your half an hour in the gym, like, here's like the reps and sets you have to do. And you probably do that too. But I think what you're saying is like the lifestyle transformation comes into thinking outside of just like your 30 minutes dedicated to exercise for the day.
100%. I figure most of the people that come to me for help, that is what I do. They want the structure. And in all honesty, that's what most people lack. So that the lifestyle sort of comes secondary to that. First, we build the structure, right. Hey, yep, I want you to do these 3 or 4 workouts, throughout the week. I want you to eat these different things. Build that structure there to give you a good foundation. And then from there, it's funny, I always say, probably half of what I do is sort of like a psychology type thing. I feel like I'm a psychologist for my people. Where, really then it takes it to that next step. Okay, you've been consistently in this workout. What are your days looking like now? Okay, you drop the kids off, you got to do these things, and you have this hour that works out. What do you think we could fit in that little time? And some of my clients will say, yeah, I got 30 minutes. I don't know what to do. I'm not a big runner, whatever it is. I've got this this bike, and I'm cool. Let me make you a quick little workout that you can even look at on there between your bike and some push-ups, some bikes, and some body weight squats. But that's really what it is. It's developing the mindset to get everybody geared up and going. But certainly starting with that structure is ground one.
Yeah, man. I think that's what makes you different and sets you apart, is because pretty much any certified personal trainer can write up a workout program, like 3-4 days a week, whatever the case may be, a certain amount of prescribed sets and reps. But you're actually training people to look at all little angles and cracks and windows throughout their day. And even if they can't get that extra workout in, like that 10-minute break they have, at least they're thinking about it, right? And that gets the mindset changing and the gears turning to, like you said, transforming their lifestyle into thinking about fitness and activity a lot more than they typically would if they were just getting like a prescribed cookie cutter workout program.
Absolutely. And that's really, that's the name of the game. Like I said, certainly, they want to have those things, but for me, I think, like you said, that is the difference. There's a lot of coaches out here. So, one of the things I always tell people when they find me, is that, I'm happy that you entrusted me with this. And for me, I take that very personal. So I definitely want to give value in there. And for me, I've had people when I first started doing it, that would, they pay for the program, they enroll in the program, and then you really might not hear from them anymore. They go or they do it for for 3 months, for 6 months. And then as I check on them after it, they're no longer in it. So for me, the true success in my program comes with, when people work with me for, whatever time period may be, 6 months, a year, whatever that is, but the true success comes after that, after they no longer work with me and they no longer need another trainer ever again in their life, because they now, do it for them, and they now know the things that they need to carry them for the rest of the life,
Right, man. Absolutely. That's also what I strive to do for it. I always like to say, I rather teach you how to fish as opposed to just giving you the fish. And then once the fish is
absolutely
gone, if you know how to fish, you're back to square one. So that's the goal. That's awesome.
100%.
So to play devil's advocate then to that end of things, always looking to get a workout in, what are your thoughts on proper recovery and rest?
So rest and recovery is certainly important. You know it like I know it. In fact, we can, and I've been to myself sometimes to, really tell myself to slow down. So especially a person as active as I am, it's very important that I tailor my recovery very importantly. So for me, I take, because I do have a high activity level, and most days I'm doing some type of things. I believe in an active rest. Yeah. Because for me, I do want to stay moving, but it doesn't have to be, go in the gym and, throw around 300 pounds. It doesn't have to be these different things. It can be, just a walk, take the family out for a walk, right. Anything like that, pretty much anything to be moving, where it can still be rest. I'm still not getting, vigorous activity, and my body is still able to recover. And then, on the other side of that, you have, very intentional rest too. Sleep is so important that so many people, especially the people that I work with, these business owners, people that are short on time, typically that's where they're cutting the time from sleep. They're burning it on both ends, getting up early, going to bed late. And it really does cut into, some of the effectiveness of what you're doing, all the work you're doing. That rest is certainly important.
Yeah. And whether it's building muscle or losing the fat, sleep is paramount.
Absolutely. That's when your body does most of the work. I try to explain to people, when we're doing all these things in the gym, all we're really doing, we're breaking the body down. Where you're really building it up, or really making that headway, really making that progress, is going to be when your body's doing nothing, quote unquote nothing. You feel like it's doing nothing, but your body's doing a whole lot. And that healing process in that rest is where you're going to see all of those gains, and all of that progress really takes place.
Yep, absolutely. All right, man. So somebody comes to you and they ask you, all right, you're on an elevator with somebody. They're like, all right, Josh, what are 3 things I need to start doing like today if I want to start losing some weight and losing some fat?
So typically what I tell people, so as you can probably see from the way I sort of operate, everything is mindset, right? So I tell them, what's your favorite thing to do, activity prior wise, maybe it's right now. Just start. So the first thing I say is just start. I don't care what it is. Maybe, yeah, I used to love running, but now, 70 pounds overweight and it kills me that I can't run. Well, go walk. Go and do the run. You can run, a 20-minute pace mile, and that's going to be better than you not running at all. So the first thing I tell people is start, because that's really the ideology that a lot of people have a hurdle getting over. It can be very daunting looking at where you've been and knowing, okay, I'm not, where I used to be. And I know that that's going to be an uphill battle. But without that first step, you will never go. So the first thing I say to people is start. The second thing I say to them is going to be dietary. I'm a very big proponent of, and this is usually for people that come to me and maybe they're very far from where they want to be. Maybe they are, very overweight. And they're looking for something to make a change where really, that physical movement might be a harder thing right off the bat.
Right.
And I tell them, hey, make a dietary change. Typically one round thing I could tell for everybody. I don't tell anybody to cut carbs. I say cut bread. Most people eat immense amount of bread. Yeah. It's one of the most empty carbs that our body's gonna do. Especially if they're eating like white bread, things like that. So actually, for me, when I first made my first action of changing my lifestyle, it was that I just stopped eating bread. Yeah. And you see pretty big changes for such a small action.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those two things. And then, really it's just consistency. That's a third thing that I tell people, whatever little action that you do today in that first step where I told you to start, do it every day for a week, right? Then take it from there. Do it every day for a month. Consistency. Consistency is probably the biggest factor in just about anything we do. You can take the smallest step, but if you do it every day for the rest of your life, you're going to go pretty far. So those three pillars I think are paramount in getting you ahead in, not only your fitness journey, but anything really, in life, but yeah, definitely in that fitness journey, getting that nutrition, starting, and then just sort of consistency,
Yep. Yeah, I think that simple little nugget you gave of just cutting out bread, that alone, I mean, if everybody did that we would see some tremendous results. And now obviously there's a time and place for carbohydrates and stuff, and a little more nuanced conversation, but generally speaking, somebody who's overweight into obesity, trying to lose weight, cutting out bread is a great piece of advice.
It's huge because, just as a society, an American society, we utilize bread so much. And like I said, I never tell them, hey, you don't have to cut out carbs. Don't replace the bread with more carbs. But like wherever you're eating bread, if you're making a sandwich, take the bread and don't put it on. Eat just the meat. Right. Anything like that. So yeah, it's an immense step, a small action that creates a pretty noticeable change, and usually aids in getting their mindset clicked over towards getting in that right direction. And it's sort of a rewarding thing for them. They see because it is such a small action. They're like, wow, I only did this, and I saw, I lost 8 pounds. Yeah. Imagine if I, do really clean up my diet and add some action.
Yeah,
so
it's like the gateway into like, what else can I do now?
Exactly.
Right. So, what are some of the most common stumbling blocks your clients run into, and how do you help them get over those?
I say, in all honesty, probably the biggest thing that I run into with people doing is literally the start, which is why that ended up being one of the most, paramount, pieces that I give to people when they ask me for it. Right. I have a lot of people, especially this time of year, right? You're coming off the new year. You get a lot of people who, are very motivated at the end of the year. They want to go, they want to keep things going. But then it comes time and they see the workout. And it doesn't matter how basic you make the workout. It could be all, body weight. It could be, it's nothing, crazy. But they see the workload. They see that, it could be 30-minute workouts for 3 times a week. But just seeing it sort of evokes this fear. And fear is a crippling thing, man. And it sort of keeps people in. So honestly, a lot of the work that I end up doing on people's programs is getting them started, really getting them to go. And that's where I say, really I come in, as that psychologist, almost a therapist, really, and give them things, on how to get started, how to, really give them those 3 tips really on getting going. And then really, one thing I do for them is help them identify their why. What's the reason that you want to do this? It can't be just because. You have to, especially when it's hard, you need to have it, attached to something. Yeah, absolutely. For those days when you're not feeling it. And I tell people that all the time, like, I'm not always feeling it, but I have, my whys that I can always look and I can envision, and I can say, that's bigger than me. It's bigger than what I feel right now. It's bigger than me wanting to lay in bed. It's bigger than, me not wanting to get this workout. So, that's really the biggest stumbling block people have to start. Typically, once people get going, and probably by way of me giving so much of that psychology therapist type thing, once they're going, they're usually going. It's interesting, obviously, like just as the program goes on and anybody's duration that they take, I end up, having to talk to them less, really just sort of checking in. I send my weekly videos just to tell them, there are things that, that I'm seeing in their track and their progress. But, the questions get further in between, and you see the progress become a little bit more consistent. And it's sort of like, when they're on the training wheels and you sort of let them go and now they're riding. So it's a pretty awesome feeling. Right? Yeah.
What are some common whys for people? What are some of the most common, like, bigger reasons other than just like wanting to look good at the beach next summer?
Right. Yeah. A lot of people, some of the strongest ones that I see, tie it to family. I have a gentleman, he's like 46 years old. He's like, yeah, man, I had, back surgery. And my biggest fear is that, we just had a kid 3 years ago, when he gets, whatever age, am I going to be able to throw the ball around with him? Am I going to be able to run around with him outside? These different things. Right. Mom's getting old. Am I going to be able to help her as she, gets into bed, as she needs care, things like that. I think, if you're a family oriented person, it's immensely powerful to be able to tie it to those things. Mm-hmm. You get a lot of actual just health issues that people are, and those are some of the more jarring, the more, alarming, where it's like, I have to, or it may be my demise.
Yeah.
So those are always powerful.
Like I'm pre-diabetic, about to transition to full diabetes. Like my mom had diabetes, she died. Like, you can get pretty deep with people on that.
Yeah, man. And it's crazy because, in all honesty, that's the part that I really love about what I do. I really get to connect with people. And as I continue to grow my portfolio and take on larger workloads at once, it's something that I want to make sure that I never lose. Right. You see a lot of these people, especially in this online space, who do it, and they have millions of followers, and a lot of times they're very hands off. You're gonna get your program from them. You may never speak to them in your entire duration of the program. Right. But for me, like, this is why I do it. Like, I love to connect with people to really, and say they graduate my program, and next year I see them and wow, look at him and his kid. They're out there, and he started baseball this year. He's running around, and that stuff gives me chills, man. Like, I look at that, I'm like, I was able to help them, come to that. So it's a really, really rewarding thing.
Yep. And sometimes you got to ask why. Like, I think, like, on average, you got to ask like 7 times to the actual why. Like, got somebody coming in like, yeah, my neck hurts. I'm like, all right, well, why you want to get it fixed? Well, so it doesn't hurt anymore. I'm like, well, why? Like, so I can get through work. I'm like, well, why? So I can get, a promotion. Well, why? So I can provide for my family. Okay.
You gotta uncover the layers. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. You gotta go through all
doing a little digging is always good,
Yep. It's uncomfortable for sure. Like, you don't always want to like have to dig on people, but that's the art of coaching and being a practitioner, right? You got to learn when to dig in, when to lay off, and that's all part of the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely an art to it for sure. Yeah. I know when I first started, it was like like you said, it is uncomfortable sometimes, and people get into some very deep things. Some things that sometimes will just leave you speechless, where you don't really know to go from it.
Right.
But like you said, really being able to uncover those things at the basis of what we do, and trying to mentor, coach, get somebody back on right track or where they want to be. Those are the things that become necessary. And with that practice, it becomes, an easier thing to do.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I remember at the beginning of my career, like I get a little too far sometimes. I actually remember I had like this girl crying. I'm like, oh no, that's not the goal. I didn't want to get that far, but hey,
right, man.
I was there. We dealt with it. Ended up working out all right.
Right.
All right, man. So now that we're talking about other people's sources of motivation, what are some of your biggest sources of motivation?
So for me, and a lot of people ask me, and keep in mind, I'm 12 plus years into my journey now. A lot of people ask me, what was the thing for you? At the time when I first started, sports was very big in my. I was going to college for football, and that was really just off the strength of my talent. And I was still overweight. I was about 265 pounds. Really wasn't all that strong. I had natural strength, but not the stuff you're going to see at that next level. So having that, was a big motivator for me. Obviously, at that time, we all think, hey, I'm going to the league. So for me, it was digging in and finding that Kobe-esque mindset of, hey, I know if I just go hard, like I can make it to this pinnacle of this sport that I love. So that was my initial why, doing it for that. I think with those things, and something that I try to explain to people, is that your why, you have that why, and it's your initial one, but it may forever be changing. It may forever be changing. Like, that's why I started. There was a point where I liked my physique, so I worked out to just look good on the beach, like you said, something very vain. Right now, since it's my profession, I do it at my biggest why is my clientele. It is the people that I'm giving advice to. I tell people, and I have a lot of people who, reach out to me and maybe they don't enroll in my program. And I say, hey, well, just follow what I do, because if nothing else, I'm going to lead by example. I'm not going to tell you to work out 3 times a week and I'm not doing at least that. I'm not going to tell you, hey, maybe you need to, run a little more, and you're not going to see me out getting that cardio in. So it's important for me, I used to think, man, it's probably annoying to people, but so many people tell me like, hey, man, it's crazy to see, the dedication that you have that, to that. And for me, that's my current biggest why, for the people and all the connections that I've made, and I tell people about the mindset you have to be in for me to show that in real time to them, and for them to look on my page at any given time, at any given moment, and see, okay, Josh is working. So like for me, that's a big why for me, so that it's important that I practice what I preach. It's important that I show the way and I lead by example.
Yeah. So your why has evolved.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a hard thing for people to really understand sometimes, especially for some of the ones that, you can try to uncover and try to really find those layers of their why, but it's still, they're stuck on that surface level why. Because eventually that goes, with football, it goes looking good for the beach. Yeah, cool. I'll look good for the beach. Find those deeper levels. And sometimes it takes just sort of working through that first layer of why and getting past that to find that next layer. So really explaining to people that, it's an ever evolving, reasons, ever evolving, as we are people, ever evolving,
Yeah. Sometimes, if you're losing motivation, you don't need a new workout program. You don't need a new diet. You might just need to clearly define your why. And it might have changed from what you started with 5 years ago.
Yeah. I call it a mindset shift. And I think regularly practicing that is an important thing.
Definitely. Awesome, man. So talk more about your personal journey then. So you're an athlete, obviously in high school, and then was it at Westchester University you're playing football at?
Yes. So that's the one out of high school, when I was just sort of getting looks from all these different colleges, that's what it was. But yeah, ultimately ended up going at Westchester to play. And this is where I said I could really ramble when I start talking about my journey, because it gets me. So I was overweight for most of my childhood. And then leading up into high school, right before college. And like I said, the football was a very big thing for me to go ahead and really want to make the change. Really something that was the first time really that I made a decision that, hey, I'm going to make this big change in my life. And this is what I want to do, and I'm going to stick to it. And I made that decision that, I wasn't going to stop. Like I said, my first action was just to make dietary changes. I stopped eating bread. I started eating salads. Now, albeit the salads at that time that I was consuming weren't even necessarily of the healthiest version, but it wasn't chicken and onion and all and cheese over rice. It was over lettuce. So, just that little change definitely helped. And, a lot of people ask about my running right now, and I run so much. And I say that was my first fitness love. I just ran, and it was difficult because I was so heavy. And that's why I tell people you can go out there and you can run a 20, 30-minute mile at your slowest pace, whatever. But just you being there and consistently going through, is going to start something. It's going to get the ball rolling. It's going to get the body taking action. And that was really, my big thing. I'd seen a video as well. I went on this cruise and got hypnotized, and we purchased the DVD. And the video of it was alarming to me. I didn't realize when you're in it, you don't really realize that you're like that. I was still an athlete. I played football, so I was social, never really felt shunned or anything like that. Obviously, people would make remarks, the natural stuff, but it never really hit me because, I still was, it was never weighed heavy on my life. But when I saw that, I was like, whoa, I didn't really know that I was like that. So that mixed with the football really created a very big push. And like I said, I got out there, I just started running. It's interesting when I go back to my mother's house every now and then, I run the same loop that I first ever ran. And it's a really cool thing, just sort of like, it's like nostalgic, and it's like, wow. And this is where I started. And I think about all the things I do, fitness. And then I think about that very first run and how running from my mom's house to the Acme seemed like, holy crap, like that's a long way. And even as I was in it, thinking I was going to die, and never thinking, hey, 12, 13 years down the road, like, dude, this is going to be cake for you. You're going to be doing so many other things. So really, I think, those points too are very important to really look at your journey, really be present in it. Really appreciate the times where you're not where you want to be, because when you get where you want to be, those are the things that, help root your why,
Absolutely, man. Very cool. Very cool. So did you end up playing all 4 years at Westchester?
No. So I did 2.5. It ended up being a numbers game. I actually ended up getting cut from the program for a numbers thing. They give you the talk. Hey, it's just the numbers. You're going to be going for a couple of weeks. We're going to bring you back. For me, I had a very big ego at that time. Like even my freshman year, I very much didn't like that I didn't start because I felt like I was the best linebacker on the team. But obviously you have seniors. There's a lot of things that sort of go into all those different things. Right. So, even in those, going through that, I really had to break down my ego. So at the couple of weeks that, I was off the team, that was my first experience of really college social life. And in all honesty, after experiencing that, I was like, I think I dodged my coach's phone call for like another 2 weeks, man. And I was like, I just told him, I was like, I just got to focus on schoolwork. But in all honesty, it was just like, really experiencing that college life. It was hard to really give that back, which brought an entirely different element to, staying in your fitness and doing all these other things, because that's, it's not as easy to do so when you have all of that distraction going.
So your why probably changed then at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. At that point, it changed to, and that's where I say it changed really for vanity's sakes. For looking.
When you're an 18, 19-year-old kid, it's hard to find like a real deep why at that point. So you go with
right.
what you have.
Absolutely. And that's, especially at that time, it's actually a very strong driver,
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of hormonal reasons for that. Biological reasons for that.
Absolutely. You think about, throughout your life when, image is probably most important. It's certainly that time, that college, who are you, in college to, the scene, who's the social circle? What do they think of me? These different type things. So, it sort of created, Josh is that guy. He's always running around campus, all these things. So that was something that definitely helped me stay rooted in my fitness, while also, still going, out and partying, then going to the calf and not eating so great, all the time. So, that ended up being a very strong driver at that point.
I mean, hey, that's human nature, like in its rawest form right there, almost. Yeah. I rather go along with biology than try and fight it, right?
Absolutely. It's hard to fight it, man. It's hard.
Really hard. Sometimes we have to, though. All right, man. So if you could just like virtually like download like 3 things into like everybody in the country or world for that matter, like everybody in their heads, like 3 things that they could start doing tomorrow to just basically, reverse this obesity epidemic we're in right now.
Sheesh, 3 key points. I guess I would have to say, those go to those same, core points I give to anybody who meets me and ask. Make a decision, right? Make a decision that you want to start. Make a decision, because we can say all these different things. We can say all these different things that we want to do, but literally, so I had a client last night, and like I said, one of the biggest things they have is to start. So we were on the 2nd day of her program. She missed day 1. I'm like, hey, it's day 1. You were really, excited to start. Yeah. And then she's like, I said, well, look, here's what we're gonna do. Take, look at the workouts, pick whichever one you like, and make it that you're going to do it tomorrow, right? Start that. So not only are we going to say that we're going to do it, where is it going to be in your day? And I'm going to call you at that point and make sure that you're getting ready to do that. It takes a lot of planning. So being able to intentionally move. So I guess if we were to categorize that, move with intention, right? Set that intention and start and get going. And then after you get going, the second point I would say is keep going. Whatever going may be, like I said, it could be a small start. It could be that walk. It could be whatever it is. Make the decision that you're going to keep going. Something that helps me with those things is writing it down. Write the things down that you want to do. It's very easy, like I said, to think the things that you want to do, but when you write it down, it really becomes a goal. Yeah. And it's a lot harder to dodge it because, when it's out of sight, it's out of mind. I truly do believe that. So, writing those goals down, whether it's just for tomorrow, hey, 1 mile walk. You're going to be put it on your refrigerator. You're going to you're going to be looking at that every day. Put it as the background of your phone. You're going to be looking at that all day. Where
that doesn't help. I mean, I know sometimes that telling somebody else you're going to work out tomorrow at 2 p.m., like telling your spouse or your brothers, whatever the case may be, siblings, somebody in your life, somebody you work with, like tell them you're starting this. So that almost creates like another source of accountability for you as well.
Absolutely. So a lot of people, for them, and that's why I make them tell me, because, I serve as that accountability purpose. But right. I think that's a big thing for me. That's very much the way I operate. So when I tap into people who can operate that same way, I definitely tell them to use that. I think about when I did my first ever bodybuilding competition, it was never something I was going to do. People suggested, and I kept saying, maybe I'll do it. And then one day I literally posted to social media, I'm going to do nothing else. I'm going to do a bodybuilding competition. Yeah. And now at that point, it was like, well, I said it now. I got to sign up for the bodybuilding competition. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's a very powerful tool as well. Outward accountability from someone else, someone that you have a great respect for, someone whose, opinion you value, who you don't want to let down. Mm-hmm. And then I guess just as far as more on the more technical side, as far as tackling obesity, dietary changes, that's always going to be the biggest pillar. I live by, you definitely need both physical and your diet. But I'd say if you ever were to have just one, or you need to start with one, that dietary is certainly going to be where it's at. You can make immense changes with that. So even if it's simple, like I said, stop eating bread, write that down, throw away your bread, whatever it may be, or don't throw it away, give it to somebody. I don't know. Right. Anything like that, but really taking action and doing those things are the biggest things, because it's so important, man. Even myself, who's been in it long, I'm sure it's so important to move with intention and really plan out. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. You have to actually plan out. These things don't, just occur by happenstance. Yep. It's very intentional action that takes place to have a fitness journey, to start a business, to do any of these things. You have to move with intention.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people were maybe the gap is that people can, they can do half an hour for a workout, but they can't intentionally plan their meals the next
Right.
day. Let's actually transition to that then. So how do you help
Yeah.
people along with the meal planning?
So typically, what I do is start from, I have to get a good idea of where they're at, right? So I think the biggest reason for failure in any meal plan program or any diet for that matter is drastic change from where you're at, right? So I look at people, and everybody's coming from a different place. But what are you currently eating? I have them walk me through their overall day. So the very first step, I'm going to tell them things to cut out. Hey, take this first week, do it, do your go through of your week. But take out this, for lunch, take out this. For dinner, don't have the rice, don't have this, whatever it may be. So that's the first step. And then from there, it's really building things that are like what they like, similar things, because you don't want it to be drastically different. That can be a daunting thing where people say, well, I'm so used to eating this, now I'm just eating broccoli. Finding ways to spice it up and make it seem fun, right? You can do, ground turkey taco and, save yourself a lot from just using turkey over beef, which are things that people don't really think about. But it doesn't have to be so ridiculous there, but really knowing where they're coming from helps me to be able to really aim and point, hey, these are some steps I think you could take immediately. And then from there, it's all growth and transition from there, because having a person who goes from eating fast food 2 times a day and say, hey, well, I'm going to have you eat plain chicken breast and spinach for the next 3 weeks, that's setting them up for failure, and it 100% of the time will not work.
Right.
So I think it's important, and I think that's a reason a lot of people, don't go through with their things, because it is such a drastic change.
Gotcha. So you try and make it as least drastic as possible at the beginning, and you take them one small step at a time. So like when you look like year 0 compared to like year 2, drastic changes, but like each one of those
Absolutely
is small. That's smart.
Yep. And that serves as a secondary sort of mindset type thing, where they can see, okay, wow, even in the exercise and the workouts, or I started with just doing a walk and now look at me. And that just lets them know, like, yes, that progress is going to be continuous. As long as you go, it goes. And day by day, maybe you don't see anything, you don't really feel anything, but month by month, year by year, you look at, and it's big change. So definitely, I think that transitioning and that easing into it is certainly a better way to go, than just sort of a cold turkey, hey, eat this, don't eat this.
You got to go from the way you're eating to eating in this ideology of diet, or this ideology of like, you got to go carnivore, you got to go keto, you got to go paleo. No, let's not go all the way at first. Let's go 1 mile per hour at a time, as opposed to 0 to 100.
Absolutely. Because you got to figure, most people, whatever they're consuming regular is going to be probably above, what their caloric, intake needs to be. But any reversal in the other direction is certainly going to get the ball rolling for them. Maybe it's not putting them on any type of aggressive deficit right away, but it's a deficit from that surplus where they were at. So, now the weight loss stop, or the weight gain stops, and maybe we're stagnant. We stay there for the first week, and then we start moving back. But in their mind, it's like, okay, well, we're not really doing anything different, but I stopped gaining weight, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I lost 1 pound last week, and we didn't do really anything different. We just removed, the bread from lunch. Yep. It really helps to make it really ease into them, because it can be such a daunting task sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's smart. So on the diet topic, I've seen you go, like, I think when I first started following you, were like vegetarian, vegan. Now, like you seem to be changing it up pretty often. Is that intentional? Do you have one diet you like, or what are your thoughts?
I eat pretty steady throughout the year. When we met, I was vegetarian at the time. And I'm not sure if I told you, but I did that really to understand some of the clientele that I did have. I ended up taking on a great deal of vegetarian clients who also were doing exercise programs. And one of the things that they, that I was finding common in their responses and their feedback was, hey, man, I'm kind of tired. I don't know if I have the energy sometimes to get these workouts in. What's going on? Because naturally, as they wanted to lose weight, you put them on a deficit and more, maybe even a carb deficit.
Yeah.
So really, when I looked at that, I was like, okay, well, obviously I know what science says, and all these different things, but experiencing was a different thing. So I did it for 90 days. Really to try to understand them more. And
Cool.
I understood very quickly that feeling of fatigue and just general, tiredness, with not having those carbs in there. But, my general diet, I eat pretty steadily around the year, lean meats, pretty low carb diet. Higher fats at certain times of the year. Definitely during the winter, I indulge. I use that, to match up with, trying to gain a little size.
Yep.
Because ultimately, life's about living, right? My favorite things are my mom's home cooked meals. So I don't care what I'm doing, unless I'm like, 2 weeks out from a show. When I go home, I'm eating the mac and cheese. There's no way I'm passing that up.
Right.
So, for me, it's just about, pivoting from there. Okay, I'm not going to be super lean with my extra intense V cut and abs, but I can use this time to use that extra carb and that, that extra glycogen in there to really throw around some weight, really engage in some hypertrophy.
Yeah.
And really, I think that's what it is, being able to utilize and use the different areas of your life. But I took a lot from that vegetarian stint. I think in all actuality, what I'm going to try probably next winter is going to do like a vegetarian bulk almost, because, you do get a lot of carb in the vegetarian diet. And I think being able to use that, through the holidays, would be cool. Like my mom makes, ham or turkey. I will miss out on the turkey because I do love turkey, but ultimately it's a lot of just carbs, mac and cheese, sweet potatoes, and all these different things. So using that, like, I think that just aligns with that. So I'm actually very interested to try that next year.
It's been done before, man. It can be done. People have done it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm excited to it, but I think, for me, like I said, it's an evolution. So as I, find clientele that tells me different things, that try different things or tell me things that they've tried, or tell me the things that they're experiencing as they go through the program, it's important for me to know it on a real aspect, on a real time aspect, because so much of what I do and how I connect to people is being able to tell them, yeah, I've been there before. I've been overweight. I've been down this journey. So to be able to say, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I did vegetarian. I certainly understand that. Let's tweak this a little bit. Those are going to be the things really that help me be the best coach that I can be.
Man, that's awesome that you did that. I mean, like you said, if you actually had gone through it, your ability to help somebody currently going through it just grows exponentially. For example, like in my practice, somebody coming with low back pain, like me having had a broken back in like several flare-ups throughout the years, like I know what that feels like, and that helps me like relate to them so much more and just be a little more empathetic. So that's so cool that you actually like went ahead and did the vegetarian diet for 90 days, pretty much just for your clients. I mean, that's like method acting. That's pretty intense.
Yeah. It was a really cool experience too, man. Some of the things that I experienced in that certainly, really bringing home the point that they were saying about the fatigue sometimes with, a lower carb, vegetarian diet. But I think for me, the biggest thing was, protein intake. I'm not really a supplement guy for the most part. So finding a lot of natural proteins, in the vegetarian diet wasn't, so easy. Especially as you're looking in the summer, I go very high protein. I did end up actually using a supplement at that point, just a vegetarian protein. But I started losing strength, which was like, whoa. Like, okay, yeah, now I kind of get it, and it's so necessary. But yeah, it was definitely a very cool experience. Coming off of that, actually, when I started eating meat again, I think it was just like my body, like wanting it. Like I did almost carnivore diet. Like I was never a red meat eater. I started eating a lot of red meat after that, utilizing beef jerky, just sort of ground beef again as well. My body responds very well to it. Something, just another learning point after that, but did that probably for about a month and a half before really saying, okay, let me ease out with, some of the red meats and then get back sort of closer to my regular diet.
Wow. So your body kind of like hyper responded after being deprived of it for so long, I guess.
It did, man. And I think too, yeah, just the red meat too, because the red meats, like I said, I rarely eat red meat for the most part. But coming off of that, I was like eating beef jerky, eating ground beef, I have a steak, all these different things. And it was like, just sort of the way that my body responded to that. It was like, it's sort of like I pulled back and then snapped forward for it. So yeah, it was a really cool thing.
Yeah, because there's a lot of nutrients and a lot of qualities to the red meats other than just the protein content.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting because we know all this stuff from like an educational point. But like I said, experiencing it, and doing a little experiment yourself, man, it just hits different.
Yeah, nothing drives it home like experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like, I could tell you about this movie. I could tell you about the Spider-Man movie that just came out. I could tell you all about it, but like,
go see it.
It's not going to be the same unless you go see it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Did you see it, by the way?
I actually have not.
Oh, okay, all right.
I got to get to it.
Good. Go see it, man.
I got to get to it. All right, man. Do you have a like a specific morning routine you like to stick to, or do you have some general principles as well?
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's probably a mixture of a little bit of both. There's some things that I know I have to do every morning. Sometimes obviously the mornings get a little crazy. Maybe I had a later night, you want that extra 5 minutes, 10 minutes of sleep. But obviously, for me, every morning, for the most part, when my alarm goes off, I have to put my feet on the ground right away. It's very hard to get back into bed once you put your feet on the ground. Like you gotta go back under the covers, throw them all in. So like just that's my even if I go and I'm like still like, it's one of those days where I'm like, I don't want to go. But like I know I'm not gonna roll back over and get back into bed.
So feet on the ground. Feet on the ground.
Yeah, feet on the ground immediately.
Like that.
A quick cold, splash to the face and wash my face. Cold and cold does an immense job in just sort of waking you up.
Yep.
Obviously
breathe better too.
100%. It's like that. Okay, good morning. Obviously brushing your teeth and everything like that. But I go through a whole morning process where I'm a pretty spiritual and religious person. I say my prayers, and that sort of goes to the ideology of what I think for the mornings. Practicing gratitude. Really looking at the things you're thankful for. Right. It can be very easy to wake up on a day when you're tired and really just hate the world. Really hate everything that you've got to do today. But if you take 10, 15 minutes in the morning and think about all the things you're thankful for, from yesterday, the things you're thankful for today, thankful just for waking up. It's very hard to have a bad day because you go into the day really just, with a mindset of, wow, things, the world works for me, and it's an energy that is necessary there. So for me, a lot of times that comes by way of prayer, and really just going in and taking the time to really just, to pray and really be there. I think anybody, that has their form of meditation is going to serve that same purpose. Whether it's reading their preferred, book, really taking some time and just being in the quiet, focusing on breathing, stretching, yoga, any of those things where you can really be at the mind, I think is a way to start the day. Because, throughout the day, so much stimulus here, there, everywhere. You rarely get time to actually just be in your thoughts.
Yep. I like that. I'm going to think about that tomorrow morning. Feet on the ground.
Oh yeah, man. That's a big one. I give a lot of people that one. Some people are like, yeah, sometimes I wake up and I'm just not feeling, I don't want to do it. I lay in bed for it. I'm like, nope. Just as soon as your alarm goes off, even if your eyes haven't opened yet, put your feet on the ground. You'll find that it's a lot harder, man, to go back into bed.
Yep. All right, Josh. So what would you say, looking back at your whole life, would you classify as your biggest failure? And then how would you say you've learned from that?
Sure. That's a good one. I think that's a good one to talk about. So, I mean, I've had a lot of failures in life, but I don't know if I could quantify any of them as the biggest or causing the most harm there. Okay. I have, relationship failures. I have, ventures that have failed. I have, financial things that I've, invested in that have failed. So many things, but I think, all of them really teach me, to keep going. That, no failure is ever going to define you. In fact, your success ends up, defining your failure. Anything that I've ever failed in, I've really just learned from, and I've learned that truly, that is the success. As long as you learn something from it, it's not truly, a failure from it. So like I look at past relationships that went south. I now know the things that I need in a relationship, the things that I need to do better in a relationship. I look at past, financial adventures, maybe stocks. Okay, well, I now understand the stock market a little bit more. Right. Whatever it may be. I think the biggest thing to learn from any failure is that, you're going to be better from it. That failure is not the end all be all. It's just that, it's something that, makes you better at whatever that you failed at.
Yeah. To quote my boy Yoda, failure is the greatest teacher is.
You a Mandalorian guy? You watch that?
Yeah, big time. I mean, I didn't have a choice growing up. My brother was like a huge Star Wars guy, so like,
okay,
those original 3, I've probably seen those like each like 100 times, and then
I only just watched them last year for the first time, man, because of Mandalorian.
Yeah.
My first, and I've started just watching them all. Then,
well, good. I'm glad that the Disney Plus show was an avenue for you to get into the franchise.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. My biggest knock with them before was like, it's a sci-fi movie, but it looked old to me. So I couldn't, it would mess with my mind.
That's my fiance's problem too. She's like, I could just tell this movie was made in the 70s. I can't do it. I guess it's right. A me thing then.
But that definitely, the failure is definitely something to look forward to almost sometimes. Like the fact is, if you're not failing at anything, you're really not trying to do much. Right. You're staying very much in that comfort zone, in a little box of things you're very comfortable and you know how to do. For me, I've learned to crave that discomfort, those things where I don't really know how to do it, because I know, from all the failures that I've done, I'm going to be better because of it. I'm going to be better because I learned that this is not what to do. Right. I think might be Warren Buffett even said, he's like, I won't invest in anybody's venture unless they have at least 3 failed adventures. Because you now know those things. It might even have been a higher number than that, but because you now know those things not to do. And, really applying that to anything in life is going to be, paramount, really learning to fail forward. Is how I always say it,
Yeah. And I think part of that, in order for you to learn from your past failures, you have to be humble enough to admit that you did something wrong. I think people fall into patterns when, whether it's like, for example, a relationship, they're always dating the same kind of people, and look at what they did wrong so they could avoid that mistakes. But in order to look at what you did wrong, you have to first admit that you did something wrong. You got to be humble enough to get to that point.
100%. That's always a big thing. The self accountability and the self ownership of things wrong. I've learned, that's something I've also learned to do. Even at times where you feel dead set to like, nah, this was in the wrong. There's always something that you could do better, that you could have done better to mitigate any situation. Yep. So when you learn to really look for those things, failure becomes something that's so minuscule that it's you're really ready to take on anything, because failure is not a source of fear for you.
Yep. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So 4 questions. First one, somebody who's hitting a plateau, one of your clients, for example, let's say that, you got their why pretty much nailed down. What are some other reasons why they might be hitting that plateau? If anybody's out there listening right now who's kind of in a rut, in a plateau, whether you're not gaining weight, or you're trying to gain muscle, you're not losing weight and you're trying to lose fat, what would be your advice for them?
So I mean, I think this ties right even to just what we were talking about last, and sort of getting out of that comfort zone and things like that. So typically when we see plateaus, it's really our body's response mechanism to adapt, right? Our body adapts to anything that we do. So once that adaptation mechanism takes place, you really are going to find where it's plateaued, because it's no longer causing that change in the body. So typically, and this could be either on the nutrition side or on the fitness side, or even both. really your body's just craving a change, something different, right? And for me, obviously, I give a lot of insight to people, depending on what they're doing. All you really want to do is change. And that could be methods, that could be tempos, that could be, hey, you were doing mostly, weight training. Let's go ahead and get you into some HIIT type stuff. Let's go ahead and get you into more cardio. Hey, you've been doing a lot of cardio. Let's slow that down and go, a HIIT type workout. Let's go just slow weight, heavier, or slow reps, heavier weight, things like that. Hey, your macro adjustment is this. Let's go ahead and tweak some things, change this up. Because your body, when you throw different things at it, that's when it really takes that action. That's when we see that progress, things are moving. When it goes from a steady state, and that's where you get that plateau. It's going up because of the change. Your body's getting used to it. And you typically, that plateau is where it levels off. Yeah. And you come into that steady state again. Once you're in that steady state, really, you just got to shake it up again and do something different. Give the body some different work, some different methods, different intensity levels. All those different things are going to take you right out of that plateau and get things moving again, because your body then wants to try to figure it out, and that adaptation mechanism takes over again.
That's where the change takes place.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, because the body always body wants to go back to equilibrium.
Right.
It wants to conserve. It wants to. That's a little bit of a deeper understanding of metabolism and hormonal changes and things like that. But yeah, that's good advice. Good advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. So what would you say is a common myth about someone in your position, a health coach, a lifestyle transformation coach, a certified personal trainer? What are some common myths you hear out there that you don't really agree with?
A lot of people, see a person like myself, or people who, have reached higher pinnacles than I have, or, all these people who are physiques online. And a lot of people like to chalk it up to, just genetics. And this genetics obviously always play a part in that. But when I hear that, that's probably one of the things that anger me the most, because I have the same genetic makeup that I did when I was overweight. Right. And for me, it truly shows that, it's a product of the things that I've done, and even as I look at it year over year, right? My first year of fitness, I thought I was in the best shape of my life. Look at me, I look great, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Every year after that, I've been in the best shape of my life. And it's only by a product of, oh, well, I've been doing it 2 years. That's why I look like this. So I've been doing it 5 years. That's why I'm like this. Or I've been doing it, 8 years. And, it's always a product of that. So that's one of the ones that really kind of like anger me when people try to chalk it up, because it is a cop out, Yeah. Certainly your genetic makeup is going to make, a difference, but not to the point where, you can't make change.
Yeah. That really only applies. I mean, like you could argue genetics if you're like a top tier bodybuilder, like at that point you could be working harder than somebody else, but they have different genetics, so they might get first, you get second. But
right.
Look, man,
general public,
average population isn't getting anywhere close to that, nor do they want to. So
right, 100%. And then another big one that I often hear, it doesn't really evoke any emotion from me, but I always think it's interesting. People just say, well, or think that you've got it figured out. Maybe that where I'm at, you've got it all figured out. But the fact is that, to be this, you have to be constantly figuring it out. Like you said, the people, you're going to reach plateaus. There's no way I could be the best shape of my life every year if I just did the same things I did from day one. Because at some point, I'm just going to plateau, but like you have to develop and continue to deepen your understanding, continue to deepen your research. It's never, a full understanding of things. You must always be learning. One of the things I tell people all the time, I say, there is no finish line. There's no finish line, especially, it's probably most applicable to this field. There is no finish line. You just keep going. There's no, I couldn't work out or do any particular routine for X amount of time and say, okay, good, I'm fit for life. Nope. Right. If I want to be fit for life, I have to keep keep actively doing things for life. So a lot of people think, that you have it figured out and you're sort of, but like the fact is, I'm obsessed. I'm anything you want to excel in and you want to rise to the top in, you have to be obsessed. I'm obsessed with building myself up and living my healthiest life. I'm obsessed with showing people the ways to do so. My new program that just came out, I put a lot into that. So I'm a year into my business from my first site. And I already was like, hey, nah, I want a new site. I want something better. I want something more. I want something, deeper that gives more service to people. And I think, I'm happy to see that that's taking place in my business, because that's the way I operate in real life. Even if it's just on a perennial basis and every year, I need to be leveling up. That's what I needed for my life. And that's what I need for all the things that, I have in place. So, it's never fully figured out. You might figure it out in this moment, but the moment you think you have it figured out from here on out is the moment someone passes you, because there's people always working. So you need to continue to work, whatever it is you're doing, obviously, definitely in your fitness journey. If you don't use it, you lose it,
Yep. Damn, man, that was great. I think two of the biggest phrases I'm going to take from this podcast are feet on the ground when you wake up, and then there is no finish line.
There's no finish line, my man. Just keep going.
I think a lot of people fall into that line of thinking, like, if I just do this, I just do that, I could relax, I could stop. I mean, that might be true for some like financial goals, retirement, things like that. But when it comes to fitness, there is no finish line.
Yeah, man, you just gotta keep going. And that's that consistency. That's that day in, day out. Even if it's not, going so hard, I know I'm moving every day. I know I'm doing something every day to get me towards this goal of whatever it is that I have, whether it's my business, whether it's financial, whether it's fitness. I know every day I got to wake up and think, okay, how can I get better in this area?
Yep. Man, that was great. That was a great conversation. Thank you so much. I mean, I see you all the time on Instagram. So hardworking, so smart, so articulate. Like, you just like distilled all like these like top level like principles and like sciencey things down to like what people need to know, man. So that's great. So
I appreciate that.
So I highly recommend everybody listen to this, follow you on Instagram. Where else can we check you out at, man?
Yeah, you can definitely hit my site, joshuajdiesel.com. Pretty much Joshua J. Diesel is my brand. So my Twitter, my Instagram, my Facebook, all under Joshua J. Diesel. And then joshuajdiesel.com. You can go ahead. I give a lot of insight there, set up a lot of calls. Even, people who don't do my programs, I give it a lot of free info. One of the favorite things I do is just talk to people all day, really giving them sort of insight on the journey that I've had, very similar to, some of the things that we've spoken about here today. Just really give them insight and be able to motivate and give people, the things that they need and the info they need.
Awesome, man. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. I hope everybody else got as much out of this as I did. Great conversation. Josh, thanks for coming by again, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me on, brother.
All right, man.